Kim Tae-ho walked through the long metal halls of Kepler Station. His black diplomatic uniform felt heavy on his shoulders. The station was huge, bigger than most cities on Earth. It spun slowly around a neutron star, creating artificial gravity for the thousands of beings living inside. Today was different from other days. Today, 12 alien species had called for an emergency meeting. They wanted to talk about humans. Tae-ho had been Earth's ambassador for 10 years. He had seen many meetings, signed many treaties, and solved many problems between humans and aliens. But something felt wrong about this meeting. The aliens had been cold to him for weeks. They stopped inviting humans to important discussions. They whispered in corners when humans walked by. The meeting room was enormous. 12 different tables sat in a circle, each one designed for a different alien species. The Zephyrians needed water tanks. The crystalline beings required special lighting. The mech collective connected to power sources. Each species had evolved on different worlds with different needs. At the center of the circle sat one small table, one chair, for humans. Tae-ho took his seat and looked around. Hundreds of alien eyes stared back at him. Some had 4 eyes. Some had compound eyes like insects. Others saw through different kinds of light, but they all looked at him the same way, like he was a problem that needed solving. The Zephyrian speaker rose from its water tank. Water dripped from its blue-green skin as it spoke through a translation device. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho of Earth, we have gathered to discuss the future of your species in our galaxy. Tae-ho nodded. I am here to listen. For 300 years, humans have been part of galactic civilization, the Zephyrian continued. In that time you have brought chaos to our ordered worlds, a crystalline being's voice chimed like broken glass. Humans refuse to follow established protocols. You ask questions that disturb the peace. You create solutions where none are needed. The mech collective spoke with a voice like grinding metal. Human unpredictability threatens galactic stability. Your species exhibits dangerous levels of individual thinking. One by one, each species stood to speak against humanity. They listed complaints like items in a store catalog. Humans were too curious. Humans took too many risks. Humans cared more about freedom than safety. Humans would not accept their assigned role in galactic society. The Veltar representative, a being that looked like a walking tree, spoke last. Your species has a disease of the mind. You call it creativity, imagination, free will. But it is a sickness that spreads. Other young species see your example and begin to question their own roles. Tae-ho listened without speaking. He had expected criticism, but not this. They were not just complaining about human actions, they were complaining about human nature itself. What exactly are you proposing? Tae-ho asked. The Zephyrian leader pressed a button on its table. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a complex machine with wires and sensors. This is the guided evolution apparatus, the alien said. It can adjust neural pathways in any biological species, remove harmful impulses, install beneficial programming, create perfect citizens. Tae-ho stared at the machine. You want to change our brains? We want to heal your species, the crystalline being chimed. Remove the chaos. Install order. Make you productive members of galactic society. And if we refuse? The room fell silent. The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, the Veltar spoke. Then you will be quarantined. Cut off from all galactic civilization. No trade, no communication, no access to galactic space lanes. You will be alone. Tae-ho stood up slowly. He looked around the circle of alien faces. Some looked sad. Others looked determined. None looked like they would change their minds. How long do we have to decide? 30 days, the Zephyrian said. 30 days to choose between evolution and isolation. Tae-ho walked toward the door. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the huge room. At the doorway, he turned back. May I ask a question? The aliens looked at each other nervously. What question? The Zephyrian asked. How many of your species chose guided evolution for yourselves? The silence that followed was deafening. Tae-ho saw the truth in their faces. All of them. Every single species in this room had once been like humans. Chaotic, creative, free. And they had all chosen to give it up. We chose wisdom, the crystalline being said quietly. We chose peace, added the mech collective. We chose survival, finished the Veltar. Teho nodded. Thank you for your honesty. He left the room and walked back through the long halls of Kepler Station. His mind was racing, but his face stayed calm. He had learned long ago not to show emotion during diplomatic meetings. In his quarters, he activated the quantum communicator. The message would reach Earth instantly, no matter how far away it was. Within seconds, he was connected to the Terran Assembly. This is Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, Priority Alpha Communication. The face of Director Choi Yoon-ji appeared on the screen. She was the elected leader of all human colonies. Her hair was gray, but her eyes were sharp and alert. What is it, Tae-ho? They want us to become like them, Yoon-ji. They want to change our brains, make us obedient. Director Choi was quiet for a moment. And if we refuse? Complete isolation. Forever. How long do we have? 30 days. Director Choi nodded slowly. Send me all the details. I will call an emergency session of the Assembly. We need to discuss this as a species. After the call ended, Tae-ho sat in his chair and looked out the window at the neutron star. It was beautiful and deadly, a collapsed star that bent space and time around itself. He wondered if humanity was like that star. Beautiful and deadly, and impossible to control. Somewhere on the station, alien leaders were probably celebrating. They thought they had solved the human problem. They thought 30 days was enough time for humanity to realize they had no choice. They were wrong. But Tae-ho did not know what humanity would choose. He only knew that whatever they decided, it would be their choice. No one else's. That night, he dreamed of Earth, green fields and blue oceans and white clouds, a world where humans could still choose their own path. When he woke up, he had exactly 29 days left to find out if that world would survive. The news spread across human space like fire through dry grass. From Earth to the furthest colonies, every human settlement received the same message. 30 days to choose between submission and exile. On Earth, Director Choi Yoon-ji called an emergency meeting of the Terran Assembly. Representatives from 47 star systems gathered in the Great Hall in Geneva. Some attended in person, others appeared as holograms from distant worlds. We face the greatest decision in human history, Director Choi announced. Not just for ourselves, but for our children and their children after them. In the Mars shipyards, Lee Min-ho stopped his work on the new colony ships. As director of the Colonial Defense Network, he had spent years preparing for possible alien attacks. He had never prepared for this. Sir, his assistant said, what are your orders? Min-ho looked out at the red Martian landscape. Humans had made this dead world bloom with life. They had done the impossible because no one told them it was impossible. Continue building, he said. We may need those ships. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, Dr. Park So-ra worked day and night analyzing alien technology. She had always been curious about how alien minds worked. Now she had a reason to find out. The guided evolution machine was complex, but not impossible to understand. It used quantum resonance to rewrite neural pathways. But the more she studied it, the more disturbed she became. This is not healing, she told her research team. This is murder. Her assistant, a young scientist named Kim Hyun-soo, looked confused. But they said it removes harmful impulses. It removes everything, So-ra said. Look at these brain scans. Before and after guided evolution. The neural patterns are completely different. The original mind is gone. What remains is just a copy that thinks it is the original. She pulled up more data on her screen. I have been studying archaeological records from alien homeworlds. Every species in the Galactic Council was once different. They had art, music, literature that showed creativity and individual thought. Then, suddenly, it all stopped. Their culture became uniform, predictable. Kim Hyun-soo stared at the data. They killed their own souls, and now they want us to do the same. Across human space, similar conversations were happening. On mining, stations in the asteroid belt, farmers on agricultural worlds, traders on merchant vessels, everyone was talking about the choice. But something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, humans began to think. On New Sol, a colony world 20 light-years from Earth, Governor Kang Woo-jin organized the first of many public discussions. Citizens gathered in the main plaza to talk about what it meant to be human. "What makes us different?" asked an old farmer named Park Dong-woo. "We ask why when others say because," answered a young teacher named Song Mi-ra. "We try things even when we might fail," said a mechanic named Han Jun-ho. "We choose our own path," concluded an artist named Yoon Hae-jin. The same discussions, happened on every human world. Children and adults, workers and leaders, scientists and poets, all trying to understand what they might lose if they accepted guided evolution. Director Choi received reports from every colony. The message was the same everywhere. Humans were not afraid of the aliens' threat. They were angry about the choice itself. "They want to take away what makes us human," reported Governor Kang from New Sol. "Our people would rather die free than live as slaves," said Captain Nam Yuri from the outer colonies. But some humans disagreed. On Earth, a group calling themselves the Rational Choice Movement held their own meetings. They argued that survival was more important than freedom. "What good is free will if we are alone in the universe?" asked their leader, Professor Lim Seok-jin. "We should accept guided evolution and remain part of galactic civilization." The debates grew heated. Families argued. Friends stopped speaking to each other. But something interesting happened. Even the arguments were human, passionate, chaotic, and free. Dr. Park So-ra made another discovery. She found records of a species called the Anthari. They had been offered guided evolution 500 years ago. They had refused and chosen exile instead. "What happened to them?" asked Kim Hyun-soo. So-ra showed him star charts. "They left the galaxy. No one knows where they went. The aliens consider them extinct. But they might still be alive somewhere?" "Maybe. Free and alive if they survive the journey." The news of the Anthari spread quickly through human space. Some humans saw it as proof that exile meant death. Others saw it as proof that escape was possible. With 15 days left to decide, something changed in human space. Ships began moving. Not warships, but cargo vessels, passenger transports, even small personal craft. They were not heading toward alien space. They were heading away from it, toward the edge of the galaxy. Lee Min-ho received reports from his defense network. "Sir, we are seeing unusual ship movements throughout human space." "What kind of movements?" "Ships carrying supplies, equipment, people, all heading for deep space coordinates." Min-ho studied the reports. A pattern was emerging. Humans were not just debating the choice anymore, they were preparing for it. On Earth, Director Choi called another assembly meeting. This time, the debate was different. Instead of asking whether humans should accept guided evolution, they were asking how humanity could survive without it. "We have 47 star systems," said Admiral Han Seok-jin. "Each one could support generation ships for long-distance travel. Our technology is advanced enough for interstellar colonization," added Dr. Shin Jae-young from the Science Council. "But where would we go?" asked Representative Oh Dong-wook from the agricultural colonies. "Somewhere beyond their reach," Admiral Han replied. "Between galaxies, if necessary." The debate continued for hours, but slowly, a consensus emerged. Humanity would not accept guided evolution. They would choose exile instead. Director Choi called for a formal vote. The result was overwhelming. 89% of human colonies chose freedom over submission. With 10 days left, Ambassador Kim Tae-ho received his new instructions. He was to inform the Galactic Council of Humanity's decision, but he was also to buy time for something the aliens did not expect. Dr. Park So-ra made one final discovery in the alien databases. The guided evolution machine was not just used on unwilling species. It was also used on members of the Galactic Council who showed signs of reverting to their original nature. "They are afraid," she told Director Choi, "afraid that their own people might remember what they used to be." "Then we have already won," Director Choi said. "We just need to survive long enough to prove it." Across human space, the preparations continued. Ships were loaded with supplies, equipment, and people. Children were told stories about the journey ahead. Adults made plans for new worlds beyond the stars. On Kepler Station, Ambassador Kim Tae-ho prepared for his final meeting with the Galactic Council. He knew what he would tell them. He also knew it would change everything. Humanity had made its choice. Now they had to live with it, or die for it. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. The alien representatives waited in their circle, expecting humanity's surrender. They had prepared celebration ceremonies for humanity's acceptance of guided evolution. "We have reached our decision," Tae-ho said, his voice steady and clear. The Zephyrian leader leaned forward in its water tank. "And?" "We decline your offer." The silence in the room was complete. No alien spoke or moved. They had expected fear, begging, desperate negotiation. They had not expected calm refusal. "You choose exile?" The crystalline being finally chimed. "We choose ourselves," Tae-ho replied. He placed a small device on his table. It projected a hologram of Earth, blue and green and beautiful. "This is our formal withdrawal from galactic civilization. As of today, humanity renounces all treaties, trade agreements, and diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council." The Veltar representative made a sound like wind through dead leaves. "You cannot survive alone." "We will find out," Tae-ho said. He turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, aliens began talking in their various languages, but he did not look back. At the doorway, he stopped. "Thank you for showing us who you really are," he said, "and who we can never become." The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. Across human space, the greatest evacuation in galactic history was already underway. Admiral Han Seok-jin coordinated from the command center on Luna. His screens showed thousands of ships moving like a vast migration of mechanical birds. "Status report," he ordered. Captain Nam Yuri's voice came through the comm system. "Sector 7 evacuation is 60% complete. The generation ships are loading the last civilian transports." "Sector 12 here," called another voice. "Mining equipment and raw materials are secured, ready for departure." Sector 23, reporting full evacuation. "Orbital habitats have been converted to mobile platforms." On Earth, Captain Yoon Da-hye supervised the final preparations. Her ship, the Hanbit, would carry the last humans to leave the Sol system. She stood on the observation deck looking down at the planet where humanity was born. Cities were dark now, their populations already aboard the evacuation ships. Only essential personnel remained to complete the final shutdown procedures. They would make sure no human technology fell into alien hands. "Captain," her communications officer called, "we are receiving the last transmission from the surface." Dr. Oh Dong-wook appeared on the main screen. He was a philosopher and historian who had volunteered to document humanity's final days in their home galaxy. Behind him stood a simple stone monument. "This is the last message from Earth," he said. "To anyone who finds this recording, know that humans lived here for 50,000 years. We learned to think, to dream, to choose our own destiny. When others tried to take that from us, we chose to leave rather than surrender what makes us human." The camera panned to show the monument. It was carved with words in every human language. At the bottom, in the flowing script of Galactic Standard, was a simple message. "We were here. We chose ourselves." "Earth shutdown is complete," Dr. Oh said. "The last humans are leaving now." Captain Yoon felt tears on her cheeks as the Hanbit pulled away from Earth. Below, the blue world turned slowly in space, empty for the first time in 50 millennia. In deep space, beyond the edge of the galaxy, Admiral Han's fleet waited. Thousands of ships stretched across light years of void. Generation ships the size of cities. Cargo vessels packed with the treasures of human civilization. Military escorts ready to protect the refugees from any aliens who might try to stop them. "All sectors report ready," came the final transmission. Admiral Han looked at the tactical display. Every human ship in the galaxy was accounted for. 7 million people. The entire human species carrying everything they owned into the unknown. "Begin silent steps," he ordered. The fleet began to move, not toward any star or planet, but into the dark space between galaxies. It would take them hundreds of years to reach the nearest galaxy, traveling at nearly the speed of light. Many humans would die during the journey. Children would be born who would never see their destination. But they would be free. On the generation ship New Sol, families settled into quarters they would call home for the rest of their lives. Lee Min-ho walked through the corridors, checking on the refugees. Children played games in the common areas. Adults worked on maintaining the ship's systems. Old people told stories about Earth. "Are we going to be okay?" asked a little girl named Kim So-young. Min-ho knelt down to her level. "We are going to be exactly what we choose to be," he said. Dr. Park So-ra worked in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Sejong. She was no longer studying alien technology. Instead, she was designing new human innovations. Ways to survive. In deep space, methods for building colonies around distant stars, technologies that the aliens had never imagined. "We will need everything," she told her team. "Agriculture, manufacturing, defense, exploration. We cannot depend on anyone but ourselves." Her assistant Kim Hyun-soo looked worried. "What if we fail?" "Then we fail as humans," So-ra replied. "Free to make our own mistakes." The alien pursuit never came. The Galactic Council was too shocked by humanity's choice to organize a response. They had expected submission or desperate warfare. Peaceful evacuation was beyond their understanding. On Kepler Station, alien leaders held emergency meetings. How could they explain this to their people? How could they justify forcing a species into exile rather than accepting their refusal of guided evolution? The Zephyrian leader struggled with the concept. They chose extinction rather than improvement. They chose freedom rather than safety, the Veltar corrected. "The same choice we were offered long ago," whispered the crystalline being. "The choice we rejected," the mech collective added. In the growing distance between the human fleet and galactic civilization, Captain Nam Yuri sent the final transmission. It was not addressed to the aliens, but to any other species who might one day face the same choice. "This is Captain Nam Yuri of the human vessel Tabak. If you are receiving this message, you are probably being offered guided evolution by the Galactic Council. We want you to know that there is another option. You can say no. You can choose to remain yourself, even if it means leaving everything behind." She paused, looking at the stars ahead. "Freedom is not free. It costs everything you have. But some things are worth any price. We hope you remember that when your time comes to choose." The message beacon was left floating in space, broadcasting continuously. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe they would understand. Aboard the command ship Taeguk, Admiral Han calculated their position. They had traveled further from galactic civilization than any species in recorded history. The Milky Way was now just a bright smudge behind them. "Status report," he requested. "All ships accounted for," came the reply. "No mechanical failures. Morale is high. Course projection, 1,200 years to the Andromeda Galaxy at current speed. But we are detecting smaller galaxies much closer. We could reach them in 300 years. Admiral Han nodded. 3 centuries was a long time, but humans had survived longer journeys before. They had crossed oceans in wooden ships. They had walked across continents on foot. Now they were crossing the void between stars. Behind them, the galaxy they had left was already changing. Without human merchants, trade routes were disrupted. Without human explorers, new worlds remained undiscovered. Without human mediators, old conflicts began to resurface. But that was no longer humanity's concern. They had made their choice and accepted the consequences. They were free to face whatever came next. In the vast darkness between galaxies, 7 million humans traveled toward an uncertain future. They carried with them the art and science, the dreams and stories, the chaotic beauty of a species that refused to be tamed. They had chosen themselves over safety, freedom over certainty, the unknown over surrender, and in the silence of their passage, the stars themselves seemed to weep for what the galaxy had lost. 1 year passed after the humans left. In the Galactic Council chambers on Kepler Station, the Zephyrian leader floated in its tank, reviewing reports. Trade disputes that used to be resolved quickly now dragged on for months. Exploration missions moved at half their previous speed. Scientific research had slowed to a crawl. "The efficiency reports are concerning," the crystalline being chimed during their weekly meeting. The Veltar representative rustled its branch-like appendages. "Productivity is down across all sectors. Our people seem less motivated. How is this possible?" the mech collective inquired. "We removed the chaotic element." Order should have improved. But order had not improved. Instead, something unexpected was happening across galactic civilization. Without humans to push boundaries, everyone else had stopped pushing too. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Aquatica, researchers stared at the same problems they had been studying for decades. Before the humans left, they would have asked for help, received strange suggestions that somehow led to breakthroughs. Now they simply continued their methodical work, making no progress. Dr. Velana, a marine biologist, examined coral formations in her laboratory. For months, she had been stuck on a puzzle about symbiotic relationships. In the past, she would have consulted with human xenobiologists. They always asked questions that seemed irrelevant but opened new ways of thinking. "Why don't we just accept that some things cannot be understood?" her assistant suggested. Dr. Velana realized that she was nodding in agreement. When had she started thinking that way? In the crystal reaches, the silicon-based crystalline beings worked on their mathematical theorems. Their civilization was built on logic and precision, but even logic needed creativity to advance. Mathematician Silvarin had been working on a proof about quantum probability for 50 years. Human mathematicians used to visit, bringing chaotic approaches that offended crystalline sensibilities. But sometimes those offensive approaches revealed solutions. "The proof is impossible," Silvarin concluded. "We should abandon this line of research." The other crystalline beings agreed. None of them asked why they had suddenly given up on a problem they had pursued for half a century. Captain Baek Hyun-woo watched it all from the shadows. His ship, the Mugunghwa, was one of 50 human vessels that had stayed behind. Not to live among the aliens, but to observe, to record what happened, to a galaxy that chose safety over chaos. "Long-range sensors are picking up increased military activity," reported his communications officer, Jung Hai-won. "The Vrex hegemony is expanding their territory." "How are the other species responding?" Baek asked. "They are filing formal complaints. Through diplomatic channels, standard procedure." Baek frowned. Standard procedure meant months of debate, careful consideration of precedent, and eventual compromise. In the past, humans would have sent ships to investigate, asked uncomfortable questions, and found faster solutions. What would humans have done? He wondered aloud. Jung Hai-won, an anthropologist studying galactic civilization, looked up from her data screens. "We would have ignored standard procedure, sent ships to protect the threatened worlds, asked the Vrex why they suddenly needed more space, and probably discovered some underlying problem that diplomacy missed," added Shin Jae-young, their communications specialist. The Vrex expansion continued unchecked. Their crystal harvesting operations strip-mined entire asteroids that belonged to smaller species. Their trading fleets demanded unfair terms from worlds that could not resist. In the past, human merchants would have offered alternative trade routes. Human diplomats would have questioned why successful traders suddenly needed to use force. Human explorers would have investigated what the Vrex were really looking for. Now, the galaxy simply accepted that strong species took what they wanted from weak ones. "It is the natural order," the Galactic Council concluded. But the problems were spreading. The Keth Collective, previously content with their role as galactic librarians, began questioning why they should share knowledge with inferior species. The thermal-resistant magma beings started claiming exclusive rights to high-temperature worlds. Captain Baek recorded it all in his hidden observation post near the galactic rim. His reports would never be read by the aliens. They were for history, for whatever came after. "The galaxy is revealing its true nature," he wrote in his daily log. "Without an external force pushing them to grow, each species is reverting to their base instincts. Competition rather than cooperation, fear rather than curiosity, survival rather than progress." Jung Hai-won analyzed social patterns across dozens of species. "Look at these cultural indicators," she showed Baek. "Art is becoming repetitive. Music follows predictable patterns. Literature explores no new themes. They are becoming what they wanted humans to become," Shin Jae-young observed. "Predictable, safe, dead inside." The breakdown accelerated in the second year. Border disputes that had been settled for centuries suddenly reopened. Species that had traded peacefully for millennia began imposing tariffs and restrictions on a The thermal world of Ignis, the magma beings announced that all other species were banned from their star system. Fire worlds belong to fire people, they declared. The Zephyrians responded by restricting access to water-rich systems. We must protect our aquatic heritage. The crystalline beings claimed exclusive rights to all silicon-based asteroids. Mineral. Resources should serve mineral species. Each species was becoming more isolated, more focused on their own narrow interests. The grand vision of galactic cooperation was crumbling into tribal competition. Where are the mediators? Asked younger aliens who barely remembered humans. There are no mediators, their elders replied. We solve our own problems now. But they were not solving problems. They were avoiding them, working around them, or fighting over them. The skills needed for creative problem-solving had atrophied from disuse. In the third year, actual warfare began. The Vrex hegemony invaded 3 systems claimed by the Botanical Collective. The plant-based beings had no military tradition. In the past, they would have appealed to human peacekeepers or requested human military advisors. Now they simply suffered in silence until the Galactic Council could arrange a ceasefire. By then, millions of botanical beings had been displaced or killed. This is regrettable, the Council declared. But conflicts are natural between different species. Captain Bayek watched the war through his sensors and felt sick. Human intervention could have prevented this, not through superior firepower, but through questions that nobody else was asking. Why do the Vrex suddenly need agricultural worlds? Young Heywan wondered. Their species doesn't eat plant matter. What are they really after? Shin Jae-young added. Beck pulled up intelligence reports from human databases. The answer was obvious once you knew where to look. The Vrex homeworld was experiencing ecological collapse. They needed the Botanical Collective's expertise in environmental restoration, not their territory. But nobody had asked the right questions. Nobody had looked for solutions that helped both sides. Instead, they had accepted war as inevitable. The fourth year brought news that shocked the galaxy. The Keth Collective, keepers of galactic knowledge for 1,000 years, announced they were closing their libraries to non-Keth species. Knowledge belongs to those wise enough to use it properly, they declared. The decision sparked outrage from younger species who depended on Keth libraries for education and research, but the older species simply accepted it as the natural order. Each species must develop according to its own capabilities, the Galactic Council ruled. Captain Bayek realized what was happening. The galaxy was not just losing human influence. It was losing the very concept that species could help each other grow beyond their original limitations. They are reverting to their pre-contact state, he reported to the human fleet in deep space. Before they met each other, each species evolved in isolation. They are returning to that isolation by choice. The message would take months to reach the human Exodus fleet. Beck wondered what Admiral Han would think of this report. Would he be sad, angry, relieved that humanity had escaped before the collapse? In the 5th year, the wars spread. The crystalline beings attacked the Mech Collective over mining rights. The Zephyrians blockaded trade routes used by species they considered inferior. The thermal beings began terraforming worlds claimed by other species, using volcanic activity to make them uninhabitable for non-fire beings. The Galactic Council met less and less frequently. When they did meet, they accomplished nothing except formal protests that nobody honored. Perhaps the human exile was premature, the Veltar representative suggested during one session. Humans were the problem, the Zephyrian leader insisted. Their removal should have solved everything. Then why is everything falling apart? The crystalline being asked. No one had an answer. Captain Beck sent his final report as the galaxy descended into chaos. Ships battled over resources that had been shared peacefully for centuries. Worlds went dark as trade networks collapsed. Species retreated to their homeworlds and prepared for wars they no longer knew how to prevent. The experiment is complete, he wrote. A galaxy without chaos cannot survive. Order without creativity becomes stagnation. Safety without risk becomes death. The aliens chose security over growth. 5 years had passed since humanity left their home galaxy. In the vast darkness between star systems, the human fleet had grown into something new. Not just refugees fleeing oppression, but pioneers building a civilization among the stars themselves. Admiral Han Seok-jin stood on the observation deck of the Taeguk, watching children play in the zero-gravity recreation areas. These children had never seen a planet. They had been born in the void, raised among the stars, and they were perfectly happy. "Status report," he requested from Captain Nam Yuri. "All fleets operational. We have established permanent colonies around 3 red dwarf stars. Mining operations are extracting resources from asteroid belts we captured during our journey. Population is stable at 7.2 million. Han nodded. Humanity had not just survived their exile. They were thriving. Dr. Park So-ra had built new laboratories in the heart of space clouds, using cosmic dust and stellar radiation for experiments impossible on any planet. Her teams had developed technologies the galaxy had never seen. Fusion reactors that fed on stellar wind, ships that could travel between dimensions, computers that used quantum entanglement across vast distances. "We are becoming something new," she reported to the Colonial Council. "Not just humans adapted to space, but humans who belong in space." On the generation ship New Soul, Elder Lim, Jun-ho taught history to children who would never see Earth. He told them stories about blue skies and green grass, about cities that never moved, and people who lived their entire lives on the same world. "Why did we leave?" asked Little Song, Mi Young, a girl born during the journey. "Because we chose to remain ourselves," Lim Jun-ho replied. "And sometimes being yourself means walking away from everything else." Were the aliens bad people? The old man considered the question carefully. "No, child. They were afraid people. Fear makes you want safety more than anything else, but humans have never chosen safety over freedom." Song Mi Young frowned, trying to understand. "What is freedom?" "Freedom is the right to make mistakes, the right to try new things, the right to be different from everyone else. The aliens wanted to take that away from us." Navigator Park Chan-woo plotted humanity's course through space. They had discovered something wonderful during their exile. The universe was much larger and stranger than anyone had imagined. Between galaxies lay not emptiness, but entire communities of rogue stars, wandering planets, and impossible structures built by species that had never joined any galactic civilization. "We are not alone out here," he reported to Admiral Han. "Long-range sensors detect artificial structures around distant star systems. Someone else chose exile over submission." The discovery excited the human fleet. They were not the first species to choose freedom over safety. Somewhere in the darkness, other free peoples built their own civilizations according to their own dreams. Captain Yoon Da-hae led the first contact missions. Her ship, the Hanbit, approached the mysterious structures. With peaceful intentions and open communication channels, what they found amazed them. The Anthari, the species that had left the galaxy 500 years earlier, had built a vast network of space habitats. They had not just survived their exile, they had created something magnificent. The Anthari leader, an ancient being whose name translated as First Walker, met with Captain Yoon aboard a station built inside a hollowed-out moon. "Welcome, young wanderers," First Walker said through a translation device. "We felt your passage through the void. Another species choosing the hard path." "You survived," Captain Yoon said, amazed. "We did more than survive. We discovered what lies beyond the reach of those who choose safety. Freedom is not easy, but it is beautiful." First Walker showed them recordings of Anthari civilization, cities that danced between binary stars, art forms that used solar radiation as paint and cosmic dust as canvas, music that resonated across light years of space. "This is what we became when we stopped trying to fit into someone else's vision of civilization," First Walker explained. The meeting between humans and Anthari was the beginning of a new alliance. Not a formal treaty or diplomatic agreement, but a friendship between species that had made the same choice. Meanwhile, in the Milky Way galaxy, the wars continued. Captain Baek Hyun-woo had rejoined the human fleet, bringing with him detailed records of galactic civilization's collapse. His reports made sad reading for the human leaders. "The Galactic Council no longer exists," he reported. "The last meeting was held 6 months ago. Only 3 species attended." "What about the younger species?" asked Director Choi Yun-ji, now serving as colonial governor. Most have retreated to their homeworlds. The few that tried to maintain galactic civilization were absorbed or destroyed by the militaristic species. Young Hae-won, the anthropologist, presented her analysis. The galaxy has fractured into competing empires. The Vrex control the eastern spiral arms. The Keth have established a knowledge-hoarding state in the core worlds. The thermal beings are terraforming everything they can reach. And the peaceful species? Admiral Han asked. Extinct, enslaved, or hiding in remote systems, Shin Jae-young replied sadly. The news was tragic, but not surprising. The human leaders had predicted this outcome when they chose exile over submission. We could return, suggested some younger, humans who had never seen the galaxy. Help them rebuild. Elder Lim Jun-ho shook his head. They made their choice. We made ours. We cannot save people who choose not to be saved. But then something unexpected happened. A transmission reached human space from the collapsing galaxy. It was weak, desperate, and addressed to anyone who might be listening. The message came from Ambassador Kim Tae-ho's former alien counterpart, the Zephyrian leader who had offered humanity-guided evolution. To the humans who left us, the message said, "We realize now what we have lost. We beg you to return. Help us restore peace to the galaxy. We will give you anything you ask. Territory, resources, leadership of the Galactic Council. Please save us from ourselves." The transmission was broadcast to every human ship. The response was immediate and unanimous. Silence. No one replied to the alien plea. No one even discussed whether they should reply. The galaxy had made its choice 5 years ago. Now it would live with the consequences. Song Mi-young, now old. Enough to understand complex ideas, asked Elder Lim Jun-ho about the transmission. Why don't we help them? She asked. Because help that is forced is not really help, the old man explained. They need to choose to change themselves. We cannot do it for them, but people are dying. People die when they make bad choices. That is how the universe teaches lessons. The child thought about this for a long time. What if they learn their lesson? Then maybe, someday, they will find their own way to freedom. But it will be their choice, not ours. In the deep void between galaxies, humanity continued its greatest adventure. They built cities in nebulae, harvested energy from quasars, and explored dimensions that existed only in the spaces between stars. Children born in exile grew up to become something new. Not Earth humans or colony humans, but void humans. They belong to the universe itself, not to any single world or galaxy. Dr. Park So-ra, now elderly but still brilliant, made her greatest discovery. Using Anthari knowledge combined with human innovation, she developed a way to communicate across infinite distances instantly. We can talk to anyone, anywhere in the universe, she announced to the Colonial Council. Anyone who chooses freedom, Elder Lim Jun-ho added with a smile. The communication network grew to include dozens of free species scattered across the cosmos. Each had made the same choice humanity made. Each had chosen themselves over safety, freedom over security, the unknown over surrender. They called themselves the Free Peoples, and their civilization spanned not galaxies, but the spaces between. Galaxies where only the truly free could survive. Admiral Han, now an old man, stood once more on the observation deck of the Taeguk. Before him stretched a view that no human from Earth could have imagined. Thousands of ships, millions of people, all living free among the stars. Was it worth it? Song Mi-young asked. She was a young woman now, serving as a junior navigator. Han looked at the thriving civilization around them. Children laughed in the corridors. Scientists made impossible discoveries. Artists created beauty from starlight and cosmic dust. Engineers built wonders that defied every rule except the rule of human imagination. Look around you, he said. This is what we chose. This is what we built when we refused to let anyone else define what we could become. And the galaxy we left behind? Han was quiet for a moment. The galaxy chose safety. We chose ourselves. The stars will remember which choice built something lasting. Behind them, invisible across impossible distances, the Milky Way galaxy continued its slow burn into chaos. Species that had once reached for the stars now fought over the scraps of their former civilization. But ahead of them, the universe spread infinite and free, waiting for those brave enough to claim it. Humanity had strolled away silently from their birthplace. In their wake, the stars themselves wept for the pride that was lost when an entire galaxy chose security over soul. Yet in the darkness between worlds, that same pride burned brighter than ever, carried by a species that refused to surrender what made them human. They had chosen themselves, and in that choice, they had chosen everything.